binary relationships. The relationships are always translated into binary relationships. Even if we have a unary degree relationship, that's still a binary degree relationship in a sense, because two instances are participating. The only thing is that both of the instances, they belong to the same type. So because of that, हम उसको कहते हैं कि that is a unary degree relationship. Okay? Clear? Similarly, if we have a three ternary or we have an n-ary degree relationship, that is always broken into binary relationships. Okay? If we have ever a ternary degree or a higher degree relationship, that would be converted into binary degree relationships. The relationship itself is converted into a new entity. Okay? In case of an n-ary degree or a ternary degree relationship, the relationship is converted into an entity. And for example, if the relationship is ternary degree relationship, three new relationships would be created. Okay? If we have a ternary degree relationship, in the picture totally we have four things. There would be three entity types and one relationship type. While simplifying this thing, we will convert the relationship into a new entity, okay? And three new relationships would be created. Relationship of that relationship with three entity types. Now this newly created entity, which actually was a relationship but has been converted into an entity, is referred to as an associative entity. Okay? Because that's not an actual entity, rather that is an association, which is a relationship, and that association has been converted into an entity. Okay? So that is referred to as an associative entity. There is another chance of creation of this associative entity, and that is if in a binary or in a unary relationship. Okay, when there is a ternary or higher degree relationship, directly the relationship would be converted into an associative entity. But if the relationship is a binary or a unary degree relationship and the maximum cardinality is many to many, right? If the degree of relationship is unary or binary and the maximum cardinality is many to many, then that relationship would also be converted into a new entity. Two new relationships would be created, and that converted relationship would also be an associative entity. मैं एग्जांपल से भी दोनों समझाऊंगा. पहले आप इस थ्योरी को समझ लें, then I'll try to use an example, okay, in order to let you understand the actual science which is under this. So basically, जी.
सर हम लोग एक ही डायग्राम पे मैक्सिमम और मिनिमम कार्डिनल दोनों लिखते हैं.
जी बिल्कुल. हम दोनों लिखेंगे.
लेकिन अगर 1 to many है और फिर हम लोगों ने उसके बाद मिनिमम कार्डिनलिटी वाला भी 1 उसको लगाना तो वो
जी 1 and 1 आएगा. 1 and 1. Okay. First one is to represent the maximum, and the other one is to represent minimum cardinality. Okay. So I shared two options of converting a relationship into entity type. There are two possibilities. The first possibility is that if we have a relationship with a degree of 3 or higher, right, that would be directly converted into a new entity type, and that entity type is an associative entity. That would be an associative entity. This is the first possibility. The second possibility is that if we have a unary or a binary degree relationship, then we will check the maximum cardinalities. If the maximum cardinality in that particular case is a many to many, that relationship would also be converted into an associative entity. it's referred to as associative entity because it's not a core entity, right? It is converted from a relationship, right? So because it has been created from a relationship, which is basically an association, so it is referred to as an associative entity. Okay? समझ आ रही है बात की?
Yes, sir.
But once it has been created, once a relationship has been converted into an associative entity, now this newly created associative entity would act as a real entity. Like it can participate in other relationships, okay? It can have what? Attributes. It can have the keys, okay? So वो तमाम की तमाम properties which are there in an entity, this associative entity would also hold all of those properties. Now let's just try to understand both these cases with the help of an example. Okay? For example, there is a ternary degree relationship. Okay? 3 entity types are participating. Okay? Here is the relationship. And these 3 entities are, for example, a supplier supplies a part from a warehouse. Okay? It's an n-ary degree relationship. Now we shall convert this relationship into a new entity. An associative entity is represented with the help of round corners, okay, round cornered rectangle, in order to specify that this entity is not a core entity, rather it's an associative entity. And now three new relationships have been created. You can give this associative entity a meaningful name. A common practice is to merge these 3 names. So we can call it supplier warehouse part. Okay? Or you can assign this associative entity any meaningful name, right? The maximum cardinality from the participating entities to this associative entity would be 1 to many. Okay? That is the only possibility. Okay? So it would be 1 to many. Okay? To fit all of the possibilities. Okay? So this is first option of having an associative entity, which is basically converting an n-ary degree relationship, a ternary or a greater degree relationship into an association. Okay, an associative entity. The second option is if there is a unary or a binary degree relationship. Okay, let's take example of a unary first. So for example, we have course is a prerequisite, right? Is prerequisite of another course. The maximum cardinality is many to many, for example. That is the case, for example, that one subject can have more than 1 prerequisites and one course can be a prerequisite of more than 1 courses, right? So the cardinality, overall cardinality is 1 to many from both the sides. So overall cardinality is a many to many. Now this relationship is prerequisite. This relationship would be converted, okay? It would be converted into an associative entity and 2 new relationships would be created and the cardinalities would be 1 to many. Only 1 to many cardinality can accommodate the possibilities whenever a relationship is converted into associative entity. Ji beta, you have any question? No? Okay.
हमेशा 1 to many.
Yes, ये हमेशा 1 to many होगी. इसके अलावा हम डेटा से इसको चेक कर लेंगे. इसके अलावा ये accommodate हो ही नहीं सकता डेटा. बाइनरी में जाते हैं. ओके,
सर टर्नरी में भी वन टू मैनी
वन टू मैनी. टर्नरी में भी वन टू मैनी होगा. जब भी एसोसिएटिव एंटिटी बनेगी वन टू मैनी होगा, चाहे यूनरी हो, चाहे बाइनरी हो, चाहे टर्नरी.
इसकी कोई स्पेसिफिक रीजन है?
हाँ, इसकी रीजन मैं आपको इंशाल्लाह बताऊंगा जब हम रिलेशनल पढ़ होंगे ना, रिलेशनल मॉडल, तो मैं आपको बताऊंगा कि दिस इज द ओनली पॉसिबिलिटी. अच्छा, एक और चीज यहाँ पे मैं ऐड करता चलूँ which is related to this thing. Please be attentive. This thing is that if an associative entity is not created over here, okay, for example there is a unary or binary degree relationship and we have not converted that into an associative entity, then while converting these entities into relations in the relational model, a new relation that would automatically be created. Because that is the only possibility to adjust many to many cardinality. We have to have a third thing in order to maintain this relationship. Okay? So we have two options. Either we can convert the relationship into associative entity over here, or we can do that later on in the relational model. Both ways are correct. There is no harm. Even in converting, even in creating a third body in the relational structure while we are designing the relational structure. That is conversion of the conceptual design into the logical or the relational structure. Okay? So these are some of the examples. You can see these examples later on time, right? I have explained all of these. Okay? Another concept that we are going to discuss is the concept of a weak entity. Okay?
सर आपने बाइनरी
Oh, sorry. So let us discuss conversion of a relationship into associative entity in a binary degree relationship. Okay? For example, we have a relationship of person with vehicle. Okay? So for example, it's a many to many relationship. Okay? Let's assume the organization has a many to many relationship between the person and the vehicle. One person can have more than one vehicles, and one vehicle can be owned by more than one person. For example, that is the case. So now, because it's a many to many cardinality relationship, so this relationship would be converted, right? It would be converted into a new entity type, and that entity type would be an associative entity. Two new relationships would be created, right? And the new cardinalities would be one to many. You can give a name to this particular associative entity. A good way is to merge the names of participating entities, or you can assign any meaningful name.